What just happened? I can't believe what just happened.
I'm on my GH5 right now. I think they might have finally fixed autofocus.
Can I switch back to the GH5 for vlogging instead of the Sony A7 III? This could be a miracle. Let's find out. All right, so this is what I did. I have switched my GH5 to facial tracking mode. I set the response speed up pretty high, and I've also put my Sony A7 III right by its side. Right now, I just wanted to do this kind of like non-scientific test where I put the two cameras pointed at me, just like I would for vlogging with either of them, and see which one looks better. And I've got all the settings the same. I'm on a 7mm f4 on the GH5, and I am on a 14mm f4 on the Sony. This is shooting vlog, and this is shooting S-Log. So if this is real, like if this is actually happening, then my God, my GH5 could be used again for vlogging. So there's pluses and minuses to both cameras. Okay, GH5, much better user interface, and of course the front-facing screen. But the problem has been autofocus. And my initial tests taking this camera out with the new firmware have shown me that on this lens, the 7-14, where everything's kind of like deep in focus, it should look pretty good from what I've seen. It's gotten rid of that like breathing issue at 24p. There's a little dust right there on my lens. Don't use your finger, people.
Going to this place called Graffiti Alley in Toronto. Never been before, hope it's cool.
So right now I'm on my super wide 7-14 shooting all the way out at a 7. This is a 14. I don't know what the f-stop is. It's probably like f22 because it's really bright out here, and I'm just keeping face tracking on the whole time. I'm still shooting with like auto everything, and I have no idea what this is gonna look like. Face tracking is on, so hopefully this looks cool. Let me zoom in. Just kind of winging it, so let's keep going. Pretty cool place, huh? So I just switched to manual exposure because I found that with this brightness behind me, no matter what mode I was putting it in, it wasn't catching my face. I tend to like manual anyway. I was just experimenting the other way around. So I'm at like an f11 right now. Keep getting dirt on my lens. Still at a 7mm, still doing face tracking. That's the most important thing. We are face tracking like crazy today. And I switched to the 12mm. I did find that when I'm in a shallow depth of field, it struggles a little bit more to keep up than the Sony does. So now I am on not the exact same focal lengths. I am on a 12mm, which is like kind of like a 24mm full frame on the Lumix, and a 28mm. One thing that drives me crazy about the Sony camera when you're doing this is if you tap the back of the screen, the touch screen, it takes you into this like set the focus point mode. And if you come around to start working, it turns off autofocus, and you're like, why isn't it autofocusing? So you have to go look back around on the back of the camera and push the button to turn that off. It's like, I need to turn off touchscreen, I think, basically, on the Sony. I don't have that problem with the Panasonic, but I think the problem we're gonna have is focus. If I come back here and I go in here, let's see. Looking pretty good. I'm looking at the monitor. How are we doing over here? So I'll go like that. Ooh. Oh, come on, Panasonic. Still a bit of a struggle. The thing is though, if I just get focused and I'm sitting in one place talking like this, because I don't always bob my head, you know, forward and back when I'm shooting a vlog, it does work better because the face tracking actually latches on and I'm not seeing as much of the blah, 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 blah thing. But it does look like the Sony still wins in autofocus, but it seems to me, non-scientifically speaking, that the Panasonic is a lot better. Keep in mind too, I have to plug in a monitor on my Sony to see myself. Anyway, I think this is very informative. Let me just get in close and look and analyze here, looking at the depth of field. You know, the one thing again about the Sony cameras is I do love that, if I get in here, look at that shallow depth of field. That's the full frame thing right there. However, this is a really, really good lens on the GH5, and you'd still get some shallow depth of field. So one way around the micro four thirds thing is to get really fast lenses, and I would recommend this 12mm lens with the f1.4. In fact, let me switch it to 1.4 to be a little bit brighter, but it might even squeak out just a little bit more. Let's see, theoretically this is a little bit more shallower depth of field. And I like that look. Not always, but I tend to like this look when I'm in an interview situation. I shot a bunch of footage out and about. I want to show you guys that stuff now.
I forgot my ND filter, so I'm just gonna hold this ND filter up to it so I can shoot at an f1.4 and see what this looks like. And I'm just gonna wobble back and forth and see if my face stays in focus. I think it's a lot harder at f1.4. I think it's gonna be playing catch up, but the important thing I think is if I stay here and don't move, if the stuff doesn't do that little wobbly stuff in the background, because that was the problem before, was all this wobble. And I'm hoping we don't get any of that wobble right now when I'm talking, but I'm pretty sure if I go like this, it's gonna take a little while to catch up. If I come back, it's gonna take a little while to catch up. Sorry that I have to hold this ND filter, but anyways, you can see the difference between this and the last piece of footage. You can see the shallow depth of field, and you know, I personally prefer this kind of look. The wide angle thing does work nice in an alley like this. I like that cinematic quality, so if I were to go like this, and keep talking, you can just see that, you know, it feels like a real interview because I'm separated from the background. So this is kind of what I'm hoping works really well with this new firmware update. I won't know till I get back and really analyze this footage. I'm looking at this monitor, it looks pretty good. If I come in, man, I gotta say, it looks like it's still even holding up like here. Oh, you're seeing way too much of my face right now. Sorry. I will tell you, for vlogging, if this is working, this is much easier because I don't have to strap a monitor onto this camera. I have a monitor that I can see. So if all of a sudden face tracking is working, like even like 75% as good as, say, the Canons, all of a sudden, like, it's like I bought a new camera. I'm gonna actually switch to my A7Rii so we can compare it to this footage. I'm shooting vlog here. I'm gonna shoot S-Log 2 on that camera. I will do some color grading. All right, so the chief premier problem right now is that I cannot see my face. So I have no idea if I'm framed up or not, but this is my Sony A7Rii at f1.4 with a variable ND, 180-degree shutter, S-Log 2. Oh, and this is my 35mm prime. That's all I brought with me today. It's kind of like the only lens I like to use outside with this camera. So again, hope it looks good. I don't know. Makes it pretty impossible to use for vlogging in this kind of environment. Truthfully, what I'd normally use out here is my Sony RX100V, the little pocket camera. But if I can upgrade to the GH5 because the autofocus is fixed, maybe that's the answer. I just wanted to take a quick pause. I just got home and I mean, look at this view. I mean, isn't this crazy? Sometimes I feel like this is what makes my job worth it. Like traveling and seeing the world and just getting to experience things that you don't normally experience. You know what I mean? It's pretty phenomenal. On the other side of things, I'm testing out the facial tracking outside here and it's not working so well. It's having a hard time catching my face, I think, with the backlighting. And again, with this lens, it just doesn't seem to catch on as well. Let me see if I come this way. Look at that, it's just taking, struggling, you're struggling. Come on, focus. Still, I was able to grab this camera really quickly and bring it out here because it has this flip screen and do this. With the Sony camera, it would be a lot longer and a lot harder to do this. So now I'm back on my 7mm, 7 to 14mm lens, shooting at an f4, yada, yada, yada. Still doing the face tracking thing. It is working better on the wider angle lens than on the 12mm lens, which is kind of unfortunate, but I'll take it. It still seems pretty cool. All right, so I shot all the footage that you saw about a week and a half ago now, and I've had a lot of time to study it and dissect it and really process it and come up with a winner in the battle of the GH5 with its latest firmware versus the Sony A7Rii in terms of what is the best camera for vlogging. And there is one clear winner, and that winner is the GH5. And that is for one reason and one reason alone.
the front-facing screen. Honestly, they both have their pros and their cons beyond that, but it doesn't really matter. You just can't take the Sony camera outside and point it at yourself and see what you're doing without a front-facing screen. It just doesn't work. If you want to get a vlogging camera right now, I would actually highly recommend the GH5. It has a lot of amazing properties. It shoots fantastic video at very high qualities. It's got scopes, it's got a great interface. There's some really good lenses for it out there that still give you some good filmic properties. It's affordable, it's got great image stabilization, and the autofocus is now pretty good. I would not say the autofocus is amazing. The Sony autofocus is better, and the Canon autofocus is even better, but it is now actually functional. You can turn on that face detection mode and point it at yourself, and like 90% of the time you'd be in some kind of a focus, which is pretty good for vlogging, let's be honest. Okay, that about wraps up this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been informative. I just have one more piece of business, and that is that Instagram has started a new channel thing where you can put up long format video height-wise, which is kind of weird. And I'm pretty excited and interested in experimenting with that. It's something new, so I am gonna start my own Instagram channel where I specifically talk about the artistic side of street photography and portrait photography and videography. So if you're interested in a little bit of bonus content from me, check out my Instagram. And yeah, hope to see you there, hope to see you here. Either way, I hope to see you next time. Later.